Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Nick Harding. I'm the CEO and founder of an AI implementation consultancy called 51 Degrees. And today we are going to do a demo on using Claude. We have created a fictitious organization called Riverbank, and with Riverbank, we're going to use Claude to do a number of tasks. In particular, we're using the Claude connectors into the Microsoft tools. And we're going to demonstrate how Claude can help team members across various teams, right the way through from marketing through into compliance, down into leadership, and also for training as well. So what is Claude and why does it matter? Claude is an AI assistant built by a company called Anthropic. Claude has just become a huge part of my own personal toolkit over the last 12 months. It's ultimately similar to ChatGPT, but in many instances, I think it's preferable. Importantly, it's been built with a very mature approach based upon strong data security principles and a very strong willingness to create governance, which is very important to especially financial services organizations, but lots of other companies too. And ultimately what Claude can do is bring together your data, your unstructured data, so your files and your documents in various ways, so that you can use that information to create very interesting output, hopefully. So what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be using Claude in an environment which is pretty similar to a lot of mainstream mid-cap UK organizations, such as they're using Microsoft 365. They maybe have SharePoint or OneDrive. They have a core platform, which might be a CRM, but it also might be a banking platform. It could be the core assets, technology assets of the business. In addition to that, we're going to be using Claude, which is going to be connecting to actually OneDrive as opposed to Google Drive. And we're going to be using a lot of organizational context in smart ways. So we're going to be connecting Claude to that context. And we're going to be using web search as well. So what are the 7 live demos? First of all, this fictitious organization, Riverbank, wants to change its ISA rates. So we're going to go through that process. We're then going to do a policy review. We're going to handle a complaint. We're going to do some mortgage underwriting, then some competitor analysis, and then finally some strategic prioritization for the leadership team. But one really, I think, important part is how you get your team members using this technology well. And so we've also created a personalized AI training capability within Claude for companies to use to train their own team members. So going to jump straight in. First of all, we are operating as a marketing manager, and ultimately this organization needs to change the ISA rates that it has on its website, which is fantastic because they're increasing. And I'm just going to demo how to do that now. So first of all, I'm going to go to the Claude Riverbank project. Which you can see here. In Claude, a project is the description we use for where a certain bucket within Claude is set up around a specific task. So I've set up this bucket for Riverbank. I have also created a fictitious page, which I'll show you now. So here is Riverbank, and as I say, this is not live on the internet. Riverbank is entirely made up. Here is Riverbank's ISA page, which advertises their ISA rates for all of their wonderful customers. And as I said in the brief, all of those rates are increasing by 0.5%. So I'm just going to take this prompt rather than writing out again. I'm going to take that prompt, I'm going to put it into Claude, and I'm also going to give Claude the context of the previous page, which I have here as a file. So that previous page is now just being loaded in as a PDF file. And Claude is then going to get to work in creating these 3 things for me. So the first is an email to all existing customers telling them about the change. The second is the new website copy needed to update the website page. And then finally, a press release. So here we can see Claude is getting to work and straight away has come back with the email needed to send to customers. Now it will be considering any policies that I've made available to this Claude project. So I'll be thinking about the compliance policies. It'll be thinking about any ISO regulations. It'll also be thinking about the way that the way that Riverbank likes to communicate with its customers, which is in no jargon, straightforward language, etc. Then it's produced the new website copy, and then finally, somewhere here, it will have produced a press release, which we'll be sending out to all of the Riverbank, the journalists that are following Riverbank. So there's a simple example of creating some website material, but now we're going to get a little bit deeper. We're going to go into this next activity, which is a policy review. And so specifically, the fictitious people who work at Riverbank have had a meeting, which I'm going to then show you the transcript of that meeting in a second. I'm just going to come back to Claude. Oops. And go back to my Riverbank project. But before I go into that, I'm just going to load up the OneDrive folder. For you to see this meeting transcript. So here is the meeting transcript in OneDrive. This is a meeting, and excuse the Riverbank pun continuing. This is a meeting between Fiona Marsh, Head of Compliance, Priya Heron, Head of Customer Experience, and Tom Pike, Head of Lending. And the meeting is to discuss the vulnerable customer policy and the fact that this policy needs to be updated to include the FCA's Consumer Duty focus. And this fictitious meeting goes through and talks about all of the things that are missing in the policy due to the FCA introduction of Consumer Duty. You can then also see in these folders the current policy, which is the current Riverbank vulnerable customer policy. And this again is a fictitious policy, but it covers all of the things you'd expect to see over many, many pages in a vulnerable customer policy. So coming back to Claude now, I'm saying, as the head of compliance, I want to review that policy. I'm going to allow Claude to review this by looking into that OneDrive folder. So I'm not going to copy anything into the context window here. And instead, I've said to Claude to review the existing policy in OneDrive, review the meeting transcription that's also in OneDrive, research on the FCA website anything that's needed, also then suggest changes as bullet points first before doing anything, and then finally go ahead and create the changes. So Claude's now going to get to work doing that list of activities, and you can see immediately it's gone to SharePoint or OneDrive, is doing a search. Claude's asking me, do I want it to notify me if anything happens? That's fine. And it's going to go ahead and find those documents. Great, it's found the files, it's going to read them, and then it's going to get to work on that new policy review. So at the end of this, what Claude will actually do is it'll produce, and one of the amazing things that's happened with Claude recently is it will produce the files needed in the appropriate format. So if you use the Microsoft suite, it will produce a Word file. If you use the Google suite, it'll create a Google Docs file. But you can also then style those files around your own organization. So you can give it your color schemes, your font schemes, and everything else. So the final output that these these platforms give you is therefore something you can immediately use. Obviously, human in the loop is essential. You have to read everything and make sure you're happy with it. But fundamentally, you can then use that file without having to sort of copy and paste things and change the formatting yourselves. I'm normally, of course, if I was Fiona, I'd be reading all of this and making sure I'm happy with it. However, in this case, I'm not going to, because this is on a video and you're not going to want to watch me read it. So instead, when it gets to the bottom, I'm just going to click next, basically. You can see here the depth of the review that it's going through. So, the proposed changes, starting with consumer duty, but then also, thinking about the cost of living, financial difficulties, digital exclusion, economic abuse, recording and minimum data sets, ongoing monitoring and periodic review, third-party authority, training, governance, MI, product and design. The list goes on and on. So there are some things here for further consideration. Obviously, I would be considering those in detail. But I'm just going to say, please go ahead and produce the final policy as per your recommendations. Great, so what this will then do is take those recommendations and produce that final Word file with the policy as described. Creating these Word files does take, typically a minute or two. So what I'm going to do is just bounce back to one I've done previously where you'll see, a very similar conversation in here, and the vulnerable customer policy review. Yeah. And so you can see a very similar conversation here. Here's the prompt that I originally put in, the review that's happened in exactly the same way, and then actually the final file, which will just save you waiting whilst it's producing that file. You can see here. So this is indeed the new vulnerable customer policy, and you can see it's gone through and created this policy in a very detailed fashion, with all of the changes required, but also with the formatting that we've set up Claude in this instance to build up that file. So there is indeed an annual review of a policy done in record time. Next, we're going to come back to the overview, and we're going to look at a complaint. In this case, we have created a fictitious customer relationship management tool. So I'll show you that quickly here. So here is the CRM tool so here is the CRM tool that we've created as an Excel file. And you can see, as you click through here, you can see the 30 odd customers that we've created as fictitious customers and their information, including the products that they hold, the communications that have happened with those customers, any other interactions, such as in-branch interactions, which, you can see some of the information in here, for example, and then any complaints that have occurred. Interestingly, you can also see here this Claude button. So you can use Claude from within the Microsoft suite as well now. So if I click here, you can actually then just edit these files directly from within Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word. I'm not going to go through that today, but worth exploring that because those connectors are absolutely fantastic. But what I'm going to do is come back to this demo. So we have this complaint. I've once again said to Claude for Claude to look within the CRM, which is in OneDrive, look at that complaint, and then go ahead and give a view on it. So I can go ahead and complete that here. But once again, I'll just come back to my previous version, which is here. Oh, apologies. There must be another one. Which is here, indeed. So this time, Claude has done an assessment on whether or not we think the complaint is valid. It does indeed think the complaint is valid and that is ultimately upheld, and we should make a goodwill payment as well as putting things right. It's drafted a response letter to the daughter of the person who's complaining. The person who's complaining is 87 years old, and so the daughter has been handling this on their behalf. And it's also done some root cause analysis. So you can then see that in this full file here, including the email to the customer, what we're going to do about it. So, we're going to pay Margaret the difference. We're going to make a goodwill payment. We're going to help Margaret to reinvest her savings. And we're going to make sure that we correct these things going forwards. Then there's a root cause analysis to understand what's happened under the hood here, and how the business can learn from this situation, which goes into the appropriate level of detail, as you'd imagine. Next up, we are going into a mortgage underwriting case. I'm not going to go through this one in detail because it's ultimately somewhat similar to the complaint case that just happened. But in reality, what's happening here is the underwriting folder is here. We have James Trout, of course, and James has had a mortgage application. But in this case, James has had some specific circumstances. So, for example, his self-employed business dropped in earnings, and so he's sent in a doctor's note to explain, what's happened there. He had an injury. He's also had a letter from his accountant to say, why this situation's occurred. So net profit dropped significantly, but this is something that is only because of his injury, which he's now recovered from, and the application is indeed here for the mortgage he's applying for. And ultimately what this mortgage application prompt is saying is to review this application and make recommendations on what we should do, and by comparing this against the lending policy, which is also here. And so saying, within that lending policy, how would we handle that case? So if I just quickly zoom to the assessment, you will then see, or will you? Claude's recommendation. Once again, it's produced this as a Word file. It has indeed approved, or it has recommended an approval, I should say. There is always human in the loop. We strongly recommend that you use AI with human in the loop. But the underwriter their work will have been sped up significantly by using AI in this way. But it's their responsibility to then go and validate this clearly against their own knowledge and their own skills. But what it's saying is that by comparing this application along with the supporting information against the lending policy, that here is the overall assessment. The LTV is within appetite. The credit history is clean. Affordability is a comfortable pass. Income is strong. The source of funds is verified. But then there are a few conditions, because ultimately this customer has had some problems. So it's been the AI is recommending for the underwriter to approve it with conditions, and the conditions are: there's a gift been made from the parent or one of the parents, so it's ensuring that is actually a gift and is not a loan, because obviously if it was a loan, that would impact the mortgage approval. It needs head of lending approval, so this underwriter would need to go to their line manager. And there's also the standard pre-completion conditions. So we've just looked at a mortgage application. Next, I'm zooming to the leadership level, and there we will do some competitor analysis. And in this case, we have analysed Riverbank's performance against some competitors. So specifically, we have got Riverbank's financial statements, which once again are fictitious, but it basically documents Riverbank's progress year after year, including the typical documentation you'd expect in any kind of annual statements. It then, in the same OneDrive folder, you can see some competitors. So in this case, there's Darlington Building Society, Beverley Building Society, Furness, and Newcastle Building Society. So if I then come back to Claude, you can see that Claude has compared those various firms. I can't see it. Where are we? Here we go. Oh, no, not that one. Sorry, there we go. And after going through, the various steps that I'd outlined in my prompt, it's then created this competitive benchmarking report. which goes into detail to say, how is Riverbank performing against Darlington, Furness, Beverley, Newcastle, looking at it very objectively based upon their financial performance. So, value of assets, size of mortgage book, savings balances, gross lending, through into net interest margin, NIM, cost ratio, etc. You can then see it goes into significantly more detail, which I find fascinating. So, for example, it's compared these organizations on their facilities they've got available for their customers. So do they have online savings? Do they have a mobile app, a broker portal, or a core platform investment? And you can see Riverbank does have online savings. It does have a mobile app. Actually, some of its competitors do not have these things. So, Riverbank in this scenario is ranking ahead of its competitors for ease of use for its customers. It then goes into detailed analysis, as you'd expect, including number of employees, because one of the things that I think is true is ultimately Riverbank's, yes, here we go, cost-income ratio is actually pretty high, and so it's something that its competitors have managed to achieve better cost-income ratios and therefore greater profitability. So that's an area that this analysis is saying that Riverbank needs to improve on. Some opportunities, some threats, and finally recommendations. So there we go. That is competitive analysis. The final is some strategy and prioritization. I'm not going to go into that one at all, but ultimately it takes upon the same form as the previous. But the final one, which I think is really, really helpful, is I've also set up Claude for Claude to be a training tool to train your team members on how to use Claude, or indeed what is AI. So I'm going to go into this project here, and this is a Claude project, much in the same way as I created the Riverbank one previously. But in this case, I've told Claude in the instructions to be an interactive AI tutor. And there's a long set of instructions here, which are very specific. You can find information about all of this on the 51 Degrees website, because we've documented what we did here on our website. But this, I think, is really powerful, because I'm going to say into Claude, please train me on AI. And then what should happen is, via a very interactive process, Claude is going to go ahead and do exactly what I've asked. So what's my first name? Nick. And what's my job title? I am the CEO. Okay, so it's going to take 30 to 40 minutes. I think I might be a little bit quicker than that, but let's see. So what you can see now, Claude is going to go ahead and do is, in real time, is going to build the interactive content required for me to go through this training course. And this is where I think it gets really, really impressive. So first of all, it keeps on coming back to this progress tracker, and it keeps on telling me how far I've got against the progress tracker. It then goes ahead and starts training on AI, which obviously I would be reading all of this stuff diligently, but it will at some point, I imagine, start to create diagrams to make this so it's not just all boring sort of text-heavy stuff, but it also can demonstrate in different ways. So yeah, you can see here, Claude is currently drawing the AI landscape with these documents and how the AI landscape fits together. So artificial intelligence is the widest container here, then machine learning inside that, deep learning inside that, and then large language models, which is what we're talking about today. So in my own words, how would you explain AI to a colleague who's never used it? AI is technology that uses the context you give it via a prompt or other context, along with the training the model received to create contextually aware outputs. I'm not even going to correct my typos. And I think that probably is fairly good. And so that will then, I imagine, move me on to the next phase in this module. So it's going to update the progress tracker. And any second, you're going to see that I've passed the first objective in that training. Here we go. 20%. What I'm going to do now, rather than going through the whole thing, I am going to bounce back here and show you one I've done earlier. And what's really interesting here is it indeed produced this certificate for me at the end of the training session, which I've told it in that instructions in the project on to create these unique certificate IDs to track the score. And then what the team members can do is take a screenshot of this and give that back to their line manager or their HR team to prove that they've done the training and that they've passed the training. Now that training is entirely personalized. So if you're someone who needs a lot of help, it's going to help you forever, extensively. If you're someone who knows the answer immediately, you can jump straight in and answer those points. So, that's a really, really powerful way of training people. Obviously, there's lots of different ways of training needed. In-person training is an essential part of the mix. But, I think this tool is really powerful for helping people to invest in their own personal balance sheets and to learn about these technologies. That's been a bit of a whistle stop. Thank you very much for watching. If ever you want to talk about any of these things, with an expert at 51 Degrees, we'd love to talk to you. We work with firms across financial services, retail, energy, and various other sectors. We focus on mid-market firms, so they're typically firms with turnover between 10 and 250 million, and they typically are people firms with circa employee numbers between 10 people and 500 people. So we focus on the mid-market. We think there's a huge opportunity for these firms to use this technology well, and we're working with all sorts of different firms, many of whom you'd recognize. So please do go and check out on our website if you want more information. Thank you.